Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. It's a Soigné Baker here. I want to first take some time to say thank you to my subscribers. I have reached a milestone of 100 subscribers thanks to loyal subscribers like the Style Strategist and the Pescatarian Guardian who have been with me from the beginning. I'll leave a link to their channels, and meanwhile there have been many others who have contributed to this. Thanks for loyally watching every week, every month. Kudos to you. Today we're going to start with something that I'm pretty sure no one's ever heard of before. It's a parsnip and guava pink peppercorn cake. Now this is similar to a carrot cake in a lot of ways. I got this recipe from watching Netflix and I saw this cake. I messaged the guy, he didn't leave me the recipe, so I said, well, I'll just write my own. So come along for the ride. It'll be a little strange, but I promise you in the end you will enjoy it. Now the parsnip is the spicier cousin to the carrot, where the carrot is sweet. The parsnip has hints of licorice in it actually, but as you can see they kind of resemble them in appearance. So we're going to talk about how to shred them first. So this is our KitchenAid food processor. Now you see these two lines here, they have to be lined up in order for this machine to work. This is the blade that we've loaded onto our machine, onto our food processor that is. And if you notice the writing there, it has to be on the side that says medium shred in order for us to shred it. Now you can flip this blade over, and I don't know if y'all can see this writing, but if you flip the blade over, it will say medium slice. That will give us sliced vegetables, but we're looking to shred. So we got it on the shred side, we've got it locked and loaded, our lines are lined up, and we're good to go. So one thing you will notice that I did, well, you don't have to do this, but this makes the process a little bit easier once I've got my lid on it and everything. And you notice this chute right here, it has another part that goes into it that pushes the vegetables or whatever it is that you're trying to slice down into the food processor. But I've taken my parsnips and I've cut them the long way instead of just leaving them whole and trying to stuff them in there. That will make the process a little bit easier and less stress on your machine, less stress on the blades, everything. The whole process will be easier. So we're about ready to get started, and it has 3 buttons on here, but I'm just going to use this high button instead of low or pulse to get done what I need to get done. Okay, as you can see, some of it will be missed because that's the more slender part of the parsnip on the end. But as you can see, look at this beautiful shred. You got 90% of what you were going for right there. It's shredded nice and fine, just the consistency you need it to be so it'll be easy to incorporate into the cake. You won't have any chunks of parsnip in there. Now, so let's talk about our other 2 stars of the show, the guava and the pink peppercorn. Now, both of these, the guava actually is most widely grown in India, but most of the USA supply comes from Mexico or Brazil. And the pink peppercorn is not actually a peppercorn, it's actually a berry that is in the cashew family, oddly enough. And it comes from also a Brazilian tree. So word of caution, if you have a cashew allergy, completely avoid these. You can absolutely leave this out of the recipe. Now the reason I chose this pink peppercorn because it has a very earthy, aromatic aroma and flavor to it. So I just added this into my food processor. I'm gonna pulse these, not like shred them like I did the parsnips obviously. And we're just gonna let that blend together and let it go. Now you can see the consistency. It appears like kind of like porridge or oatmeal, but I promise you it tastes nothing like that. And you can see there are some chunks left in it, but it's not enough where it won't blend right into your cake batter. So now we're going to start with my favorite secret weapon, Baker's Joy. If you've watched any of my videos, you know this is my lubricant of choice. It's simple, it's easy. Once you get into every crack and crevice, you don't have to worry about it getting your cakes or whatever it is that you're baking getting stuck to the pan. There are very few instances where I have to use parchment paper, but that's just a part of baking. So okay, let's get started with our cake batter. So we're going to get started with our wet ingredients, starting with our eggs. We're going to combine that with our sugar, both our brown and our white, our oil, our buttermilk, vanilla, and our guava. Now, sometimes you will see sugar included in wet ingredients and called a wet ingredient, even though it's obviously a dry thing. But because sugar adds moisture to your cake, it's included in and sometimes called a wet ingredient, even though it's a dry ingredient. But it serves more than the purpose of just sweetening your batter. It also adds moisture to your batter. So we've got white sugar, brown sugar, buttermilk, all of this going into one can coffee. And here's our oil here. Now I use olive oil because some recipes call for flavorless oil, and like I said in my last video, I don't believe in doing anything flavorless. That just makes no sense to me. Everything should be full of flavor, and I don't mind the flavor of olive oil in a cake that's not actually an olive oil cake, which we'll get to that later. And there goes my guava. Now remember, I post that together with some pink peppercorn, but that pink peppercorn is going to come back into play later on in this recipe as well. And as far as my vanilla, y'all know I just splash it in there until, I mean, it seems right. This is actually vanilla essence from this company called Flavor Mate. A friend of mine bought back from Antigua. I tell y'all, if you ever have a friend, I learned this from my auntie Nona. If y'all ever have a friend going to the islands, ask them to bring you back some vanilla. It is the best place on earth to find yourself some vanilla. Okay, and we're just going to combine all of our wet ingredients together. And once we get everything nice and combined, you'll notice though, once I get this combined, you'll see those a few little flakes floating in there. That's the guava chunks that I told y'all made mention of, that didn't exactly get all the way pulsed down like the rest of the guava, but that's okay. It's gonna be fine. Now, something else with these guava, I was not aware of how seedy guava is. It's full of seeds, almost like a pomegranate, but these seeds are smaller and flatter and harder than the pods you find in a pomegranate. If you may find that an irritant, then I suggest maybe you use some guava pulp, or something that you can find in like a Mexican grocery store. Then maybe you should go with that. So now we're combining our dry ingredients. We've got our flour, our baking powder, baking soda, cinnamon, ginger, salt, nutmeg. And I will tell y'all something about the ginger flavor. Don't be afraid to be a little more generous with this. This cake here is a confluence of spices. And I don't know if I mentioned it, but the way the ginger flavor, I think I use cardamom in this too. We'll see in a second. But this ginger flavor really takes the taste of this cake to another level. Yeah, there's the cardamom there going in as well. I mean, these spices, I mean, you can't, I mean, these are the spices that you should have in your kitchen at all times. Cardamom, cinnamon, nutmeg, and I always use whole cinnamon and whole nutmeg because there is a vast difference between ground nutmeg and whole nutmeg, ground cinnamon and whole cinnamon. You will take the flavor to another level in anything you're baking that asks for cinnamon or nutmeg and you use whole. And the same with cardamom as well. I just have this jar that I'm going to use all of it before I get some whole cardamom. That's all there is to that. But so we're going to combine our dry ingredients here. And as you can see, I use my cinnamon sticks all the way down to the nub. If it gets too small though, I'll just throw it in my rum and let it do something in there. So we're going to combine all of our dry ingredients, and like I've mentioned before in another video, some people prefer when they're instituting their wet ingredients into their dry, making a little well and then pouring it in there, and that makes it easier to combine. I just pour it all in there, and I make sure that I use my plastic spatula to scrape every last bit of that out of there, because that's all flavor down there in the bottom of that bowl. You don't want it just left there. So we've just about got everything ready. It's going to take a little bit of elbow grease right here. You can choose to use a hand mixer, or you could choose to use a stand mixer here. I prefer to use the whisk myself, the hand whisk, because that way I'm 100% certain of getting everything incorporated down from the bottom. There won't be any surprises. Sometimes when you don't mix your cake well enough, everything will be nice and perfect, and then all of a sudden you'll bite into a bomb of baking powder or flour or something, some dry ingredient that didn't incorporate well. This alleviates that problem there. You're getting down in there and getting it done yourself, so to speak. So that's why I like some batters. Like sometimes you'll see me, if I'm making a chocolate cake, I prefer to do it by hand too. Alright, so our batter is just about ready. It's time to incorporate some other things, that's gonna also, we cannot forget the parsnips. This is the star of the cake right here. And I had some golden raisins soaking in rum. The little bit that I didn't soak in there, I just threw them in here. And that's such a wonderful addition. You can also, instead of raisins, you can use dates, or if you prefer, dried cranberries. I prefer the raisins because I want to keep this cake sweet. The parsnips are enough, and the pink peppercorn are enough earthy and woodsy for me to not want to add anything tart like cranberries to it. But if that's your taste, if that's what you prefer, knock yourself out. Do whatever it takes. Yeah, I mean, to please you. Some would even add either pecans or walnuts at this point. And as you can see, I'm just folding it in because there's no need to mix and stir this cake up anymore. You just want to get everything nice and incorporated. No over mixing, because that will make your cake fall flat. So everything's ready and good to go, and it looks like I'm just barely covering the bottom of this cake pan, but don't worry about that. This cake goods nice and healthy in size, so you don't have to be shy about it. Just take your first pan, and if you want to be really particular, you can weigh both of them like I've done in past videos. But that's a beautiful batter right there, and it's ready to go in the oven. So now we're going to start and make our buttercream frosting. Now I told you that pink peppercorn would come back into play. Now I'm going to take my butter, about a stick and a half, a little less than a stick and a half of butter, and 2 blocks of cream cheese. And I'm going to cream them together with my whisk attachment first. Now, I've always read before, you know, to use your paddle attachment when you're making your frosting. But this is a tip I actually learned from Preppy Kitchen, John Cannell. I think that's his name, Preppy Kitchen. I follow him on YouTube. And this was a tip that he said he uses. He uses that whisk attachment first to get that butter and that cream cheese cream together. That incorporates a lot of air and a lot of light fluffiness to it, and in the end you'll see the result. If you try this recipe for yourself and you try it this way, you'll notice a difference. So that's 2 blocks of cream cheese to a stick and a half of butter. And we're just gonna let that cream on high for about 5 minutes and let it go from there. We're gonna let it go and we'll come back and check on it in about 5 minutes and see how it looks. So we're just going to stop it right here and check and see if it's the consistency, excuse me, that we wanted at. Now we got a lot of that butter and cream cheese clogged up in that whisk attachment. Don't worry about that. It comes out real easily. So let's check and see. And right now it's not quite as aerated as I would like for it to be. So we're going to let it run a little bit longer, about 3 more minutes on high. And then we're gonna slow it down to a low speed and add in some vanilla to give us that. Now we're gonna start the flavoring process. And this is what makes your frosting flavor distinct right here. Everything you do from this moment on. So now I'm adding my vanilla in there. And as you can see, it's not really incorporating well with this whisk attachment. Don't let that discourage you. We're gonna keep on whipping and whipping and whipping because we wanna have enough air in this so that when we start adding our other ingredients, the consistency will just fall into place for you. Okay, so we're gonna scrape everything down, get everything nice and even to the middle. And as you can see, that vanilla is still not fully incorporated. We're just gonna scrape it down now. And now we're going to start adding other things in to give this buttercream a nice, beautiful flavor. So I will say this, that this, now I'm adding my paddle attachment, as you can see. These next ingredients I'm adding are for this buttercream frosting is very specific to this cake. But you can use it on other things as well and not totally change the flavor profile of what you're trying to do. Like for instance, you can add just the cinnamon rolls, and this is even though we're only using 2 blocks of cream cheese, this makes enough frosting for 2 cakes, or for this cake and maybe some cinnamon rolls, or this cake and whatever else you choose to ice. Now you can see I'm adding in more of that pink peppercorn because we believe here in flavor on every level. Now we're going in with some cardamom as well, just a splash, not too much. Some ginger, a little bit of that as well. We're just these are all of the spices, same spices that we've added already in our cake. But flavor at every level is important. You don't want to rely on one aspect of your bake to carry all of the flavor. You want to have flavor at every level. Now I've got my powdered sugar here. Now you can add up to 5 cups of powdered sugar in this. Of course, not at all at the same time. You want to add it in slowly so that it gets mixed and incorporated and not also blow up in all over your face. So the amount of powdered sugar that you will add in here, up to 5 cups, depends on how loose or how firm you want your frosting to be. That's totally up to you. I prefer mine to be a little bit looser. As you will see when it gets done, I'll show you the consistency of mine, how silky smooth it is, how velvety it is. I prefer that over a more stiff frosting, but that's totally up to you. I will say that the way that I do it also makes the frosting of the cake a little more difficult because I have to put the frosting on the in between the layers, let that sit and get a little solid, or else when I try to frost the whole cake, they'll just slide off, and then I'll have one. That top layer will be slightly leaning away from the bottom layer, and it'll be kind of uneven. So it's up to you. If you're willing to put in that extra little bit of work, or if you want a more stiff frosting, then you add in more powdered sugar. It's up to you. It's your game. This recipe has flexibility in it, so that each person can add their own personality to it, however, their own personal touches to it, however they see fit. Alright, I've added all of my powdered sugar, and we're just going to let that run for a minute or two until it reaches the consistency that I wanted at. Now it's gotten to the consistency I want y'all to check this out. This is how I like mine. You see how nice and silky smooth and loose that is? That is just beautiful, and I can tell you the flavor is something you can't imagine. Now my cakes are done, so I took some guava nectar and some rum, and I just brushed them right on top of there. That just adds a little bit more flavor to it. This is a flavor heavy cake, you can believe that. It's not overpowering, but it is delicious. It's good. You're gonna love it the way it is. And so these cakes, they weren't completely done when I brushed this rum on there, but I just brushed them and stuck them back in there for like 5 minutes. And here is your finished product. I topped it off with some walnut meats I had, and that's it, ladies and gentlemen. I hope you enjoyed this recipe, and whatever you got going on in life, whatever you're doing, keep baking.